Hi, I'm Wayne. Love hanging out with my family, working on my house too. Bought a house for $26,000 and it needed everything. Electrical, heating, sheetrock, a new kitchen. I thought that this old house thing was a really good idea. It's out of my system now. There's been a few hammers through sheetrock from little boys, but it's all part of the learning process. Met my wife and I was in middle school. Neither of us really paid much attention to one another until we were at a basketball tournament and started talking, and the rest is history. We have a 10-year-old girl who actually just had her birthday this week. Happy birthday, K-Rita. And my wife actually had a birthday this week also. Happy birthday, Karen. My son, he's 8, Taylor David, and we also have a little guy at age 3. His name's Joshua. There's something about the Porsche 911 GT3 that's just, it's an amazing car. I tell people when they get in the car with me that if I wasn't called to be a pastor, I'd be in Europe rally racing. If you have a Porsche 911, give me a call. I'd love to help drive it. I'm Wayne Morgan, and this is God's Words with Friends.
What's up, Parker Hill? How are you today? It's awesome to be with you this evening, and I'm just so excited that you made Parker Hill a part of your weekend. And the whole God's Words with Friends series is designed to help you get to know us a little bit. So you're going to hear a little bit about the pastors, but also to get to know our staff a little bit and what scriptures that we hold on to as staff members. So we're just so thankful that you have made Parker Hill a part of your weekend, and we hope that it is an encouragement to you as you are here with us. I wanted to start out and just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a story about some of my own personal battles. One of my battles that I've really been struggling with probably for the last 17 years is actually my battle with weight. And so don't laugh. Skinny people have feelings too. All right. Yeah, I don't have a problem trying to lose weight. I've had a problem trying to gain weight. All right. So I remember in junior high, people were like, yeah, you look like a golf flagpole. You turn sideways and your nose sticks out, and that's about it. I remember that all the coaches I've ever played for in basketball are like, you'd be really good if you gained a few pounds. All right. And then I was at the doctor a couple weeks ago, and he's like, you know, Wayne, it wouldn't hurt you for you to get another 10 or 15 pounds on you. And I'm like, come on, all right, this is hard, all right? But in 2006, I thought I was finally rid of this problem. And see, I had hit the 200-pound mark, all right? So big poundage for me. Wayne wasn't tall, skinny, and white. I was just tall and white. And then a few months later in August, I had reached 215 pounds. And I had some meat on my bones at that point in time. And I was, I had a couple little kids, and my nutrition wasn't the greatest. And so I just thought, hey, finally, the freshman 15 caught up to me. And I went through the summer and kind of plateaued at the 215 mark. And like I said, my nutrition wasn't the best, and all of a sudden I started having these pains in my lower back and realized, wow, I probably had given myself kidney stones because all I drank was Mountain Dew in one hand and coffee in the other hand. And so I was due for some kidney stones. And you know what they tell you when you have kidney stones, right? There's no pain meds, just suck it up and deal with it. So I went to the doctor right before Thanksgiving of 2006, and I said, well, if this is a big deal, I want to see if that's true. If I can get some pain meds, I'd love to. And the doctor said that. He's like, listen, you can't have any pain medication. It's a kidney stone. It'll pass. We'll send you for some tests, and if anything comes back on the tests, then we'll give you a call next week. And so I went to the doctor, I went to the hospital, they did the scans, and I came home. But the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, I called my wife home because I was in so much pain I couldn't walk upstairs to get Taylor out of his crib. He was 1.5 years at that point in time. And there again, we're like, just push through the pain, just keep going. And then, Saturday came around and I realized, man, I'm in a lot of pain. Let's go to the emergency room. Let's see if there's something that they can do. And so they went into the emergency room. They did all the tests that they had done earlier in that week. And then they sent me for a CT scan and then for an MRI scan. And then they said, hey, listen, we're going to admit you. And I said, all right, that's fine. Can I get pain meds now? And they said, yeah, you can get pain meds. And I was finally getting the pain under control. I'm in my room. The doctor comes in and he says, Wayne, I have some really bad news for you. He says, it looks like you've got cancer and it looks like it's really bad. I don't know all of the specifics of it. We're going to send an oncologist tomorrow, but it's all through your body. And I remember the doctor leaving and for me telling God, what's going on? I'm not done. God, I'm a professional Christian and things are just starting to happen here in Wilkes-Barre. I don't really know what you're going to do. And then there was this switch that I just remember thinking, God, if you're as big as we say you are, and if you do what we say that you can do, then I'm going to cry out to you and I want to see, God, can you fix this? Because one of my former pastors used to say, quote from Jeremiah 33:3 all the time, and he used to say, call to me and I will answer you and I will show you great and mighty things that you do not know. And I knew that God heals spiritually. That's what Jesus came to do. Jesus came to fix us spiritually so that the connection between us and God was once again okay. And I know emotionally, God did the same thing for me. If you read in the Staff Picks book, I wrote about that with my 1 Corinthians passage. That, even though we're pressed, but we're not crushed. We're persecuted, but we're not abandoned. We're struck down, but we're not destroyed. There is a hope that is so far beyond anything that in this world can offer. And so I have seen those two things working out in my own life. And so the third thing I would love to be able to see is, God, I want to see if you can heal physically also. And so we started praying, we started sending out phone calls. After a $700 cell phone bill, we realized we can't keep doing this. And so a lady that was really good friends with us, Donna Garms, she said, I can send out emails to all your email contacts. I said, Donna, that's not a good idea. I collect emails. I'm an email hoarder. And she's like, that's fine. So I gave her 1,000 emails, and she would spend a half an hour each night sending out prayer update emails for us as we started to understand what we were going through with this battle. And so as we started to find out some of the severity of it, one of the things I wanted to have was my kids close. We had the opportunity to send the kids away to my parents or my in-laws, and I said, listen, I want to be able to remember what I'm fighting for. I want to see these kids as much as I possibly can. And in fact, K-Rita helped me shave my head because I didn't want my kids to feel like this disease was destroying me. I wanted her to see the power that we still did have, that we had the ability to make good choices even in the middle of this. And so the doctor actually came in the following day, the oncologist, and he says, Wayne, you have stage 3 high-risk testicular cancer. And I remember telling him, I have no idea what that is, but I know what a stage 3 turbo is. And he's like, well, stage 3 cancer, stage 1 is if it was localized in the testicle. Stage 2 is when it spreads to your lymph node system. Stage 3 is when it hit your lungs, and your lungs look like a snow machine went off. And I was like, that's not good, right? And he's like, no. And then it went to your liver, and there's numerous spots in your liver. And then on top of that, your tumor markers, which should be at 5, they are at 398,000. And so there's two types of oncologists in the world. There's the types that write articles, and there's the guys who read articles. And he said, I'm going to send you to the guy who writes the articles on testicular cancer. So he sent me to Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital. And when we showed up there, the doctor said, really, out of 8,000 cancer patients I see a year, I see 5 to 10 that are as bad as yours. And so I said, well, statistically, what are we talking about? And he said, well, probably a 40 to 45% chance of survival for 5 years. And I was like, well, statistically, Jesus shouldn't have been born since Mary was a virgin. So I think if God be for us, who could be against us? And so we kept having people pray. We're like, what could God do with this? And so we started with the chemotherapy, and if you've ever been around somebody that's had cancer, you know that chemo doesn't start working the instant that it hits your body. Although the nurse came in with this huge bag and laid it down on the side of my bed and unrolled it, and he starts to put it onto the IV stalk, and he goes, I can't drip this on the floor. I was like, why is that? He says, it'll eat through the tile. I was like, you sure this is a good idea? and so the chemo, when it starts working in your body, it's a systemic process. And my tumor markers actually went up to plus 400,000. And plus 400,000 means that the tumor marker test only goes to 400,000. And if you're familiar with Lance Armstrong, he had a similar cancer. In his book, he wrote that his beta HCG levels were at 109,000. And so this was bad. This was way beyond what was okay, and I'd let it go way too long. And so the doctors actually were thinking, you will need chemotherapy, then you're going to need high-dose chemotherapy, which basically meant you had to live in quarantine for 6 months. Then I would need an abdomen surgery and then 2 lung surgeries. And so we just started praying. We're like, God, what could you do? And so we started to come towards the end of my chemotherapy cycle, and I was really sick, really weak. I dropped down below 200 pounds, so now I'm still a skinny guy. And we ended up being, my tumor markers were still elevated. And the doctors in New York City are like, yeah, you're going to need high-dose chemotherapy, so make sure you're ready when the chemo ends to come down and just live down here for 6 months. And so we said, that's not cool. And we started having people pray. And we had a 24-hour prayer chart, and we had people signing up for it. And we had churches who were praying for us. And because I was working as a missionary to youth with Youth for Christ, and a lot of churches knew about us. We had people from all over the East Coast that were praying. And I'm like, God, I wonder what you're going to do 5 years from now with the ripple effect of all these prayers. I have no idea. And so we just were asking God, please do something with this. And the tumor markers started to drop. So we went back a month later, and my tumor markers had dropped. And he said, well, we'll let it go for a little longer, but just expect to come back next month. And the next month we came back, and the tumor markers had dropped a little bit more. Meanwhile, when we had the tumor markers taken in New York, they were at one level. When we had them taken in Wilkes-Barre, they were another level. So it was like, yeah, my tumor markers are down. And then it was like, oh, they went back up. And so we didn't know really what way was up. And then the doctor gave an ultimatum, and he said, at this date, you will come in for high-dose chemotherapy. And I remember the doctor walking in, and he takes his portfolio, he sets it on the desk and leans against the desk and says, Mr. Morgan, your case has been proving to be interesting. I was like, yeah, why is that? And he goes, your tumor markers have dropped to 12. And I was like, well, there's a couple thousand people praying for me. And he goes, whatever it was, it worked. So they sent me downstairs for the abdomen surgeon. And the abdomen surgeon, best in the world, said, yeah, this isn't going to be that big of a deal. You should be in and out probably in 6 days. And I was like, so what are you going to do? He's like, well, basically, we're going to cut you down the middle, take all your guts out, take the cancer out, throw it back in, staple you shut. Oh. Okay, that's cool. All right. And so that's what they did. It's called a retroperitoneal lymph node dissection. And they took my left kidney because by the time that I had found that pressure on my left side, I had a 12 centimeter tumor pressing between my kidney and my spinal cord. That's what was causing the pain. And so the doctors are like, you've got a cancer wad that's kind of around the kidney. Wad is the scientific term. And it's around the kidney. We could probably spend hours and hours trying to take this apart, but you're going to end up with some sort of kidney problems later in life. And I said, well, go ahead and take it. And so they took the left kidney, took a third of my liver, and then I started filling up with fluid, and they didn't know why, probably because they took all the lymph nodes out, and boy, I've got stories from that, but I don't want anybody passing out here tonight. So, but 32 days later was when I finally was able to go home, and I was able to eat. Now, talk about skinny. I was on a liquid diet until 32 days. And so when I left the hospital, I was 160 pounds. And I still don't know why people are like, man, you look good. Nowadays, I'm like, you're a liar, all right? I was not looking good at that point in time. And the whole time, I'm saying, my God, he still fixes broken stuff. He fixes us emotionally, he fixes us spiritually, and I'm sure he can fix us physically. And so I'm 32 days through this, and really I was very, very close to giving up in ministry because I was a professional Christian, and I raised my own support through YFC, and I was $5,000 a year short. And I remember having it out with God. I was in such pain, and I'm laying there in the bed, and I'm going, God, I don't know. Maybe I should go back into doing something that makes me money. And then a couple days later, I had a roommate come in. He was the vice president of a real big cable company, and he had prostate cancer. And 2 days later, the secretary from YFC gives me a call and says, hey, do you know this guy? I'm like, yeah. She goes, he just gave you a check for $5,000. And I was like, okay, God, that's not funny. All right, I get it. So I'll keep pressing on after you, and we'll see what happens. And so I started to heal up from that. I kept running back and forth in New York City. They were draining fluid off of me, and then I was starting to heal. So they put the lung surgery on hold, and as they put the lung surgery on hold, the spots in my lungs started to disappear, and which was pretty cool. And at the end of 2007, I was feeling good enough that we actually put together a video for YouTube and just started thanking all the people that were praying for us. Because all the way through, I'm saying, listen, even if I pass away, these prayers may be what are strengthening my kids to be a great leader for Christ. Maybe this is what it takes for my wife to have an amazing ministry. And so, God, no matter what happens, I know that you can do something that's above and beyond what I can ask, think, or imagine. And so we put together these two things, not just as a, hey, look at who we are, but it was, hey, look at what God can do. And so in April of 2008, I had my lung surgery. And the doctor was afraid, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get these spots, so if I go in right now, I'll be able to take a small portion of your lung. They only took 1% of my lung. They did a test in the OR at that point in time, and they found out that there was no cancer in my lung. And so they buttoned me back up. He actually glued me shut and sent me home. By the way, it's a bad idea to push mow your lawn a week after lung surgery, but it's another story. And the entire time we're just saying, all right, God, what's next? What's next? And they sent me for a PET scan in like the August time frame. And in August 14th, 2008, the PET scan came back clear. And the doctors said, listen, there's no longer any more need for treatment. You are cancer-free. So August 14th. So this August 14th was my 5-year cancer-free anniversary. So God is good. He's still still is in the business of fixing broken stuff. And so at this point in time, I just wanted to be able to point you guys to that verse because I started to really think through Jeremiah 33 and going, all right, what is this about? This isn't written to a tall, skinny white guy that is in North America who is a professional Christian. Who is this to? So I started to dive into it a little bit. And it was amazing. Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet. He was known as the weeping prophet because he was the guy who God said, tell the people of Israel that judgment is coming. Tell them that everything that they've known no longer exists and judgment is coming and it's their fault. And so Jeremiah actually in Jeremiah 25, starting in verse 4, he says, and though the Lord has sent all of his servants, the prophets, to you again and again, you have not listened or paid any attention. They said, turn now, each of you, from your evil ways and from your evil practices, and you can stay in the land that the Lord gave you and your fathers forever and ever. Do not follow other gods or serve or worship them. Do not provoke me to anger with what your hands have made. Then I will not harm you. But you did not listen to me, declares the Lord. And you have provoked me with what your hands have made, and you have brought harm to yourselves. See, Israel liked to do this stuff where they would worship God, and then they wouldn't walk away from God. They would add stuff to it. And God is saying, no, just me, only me. Your heart, your soul, your strength, your mind. I want top dibs on all those spots. And then they didn't do it. And Jeremiah wasn't the only guy saying, hey, God has to be number one. There was a bunch of other guys at that point in time in history. You read through it at the backside of the Old Testament and you see these guys and they all have ayahs at the end of their name. All those guys were prophets that were coming to say, hey, turn around, just focus on God. And so what I want to really focus on is that the people who Jeremiah is talking to in Jeremiah 33 are people who've gotten themselves into trouble. See, in my situation, I don't think it was sin. I think it was probably a trial. But in Jeremiah's case, it was consequence. It was something that they had done. They were warned about it. They were warned again. They were warned again. They were warned again. And all the way throughout Old Testament history, you see this God who gives chance after chance after chance. And the people are like, they get it, and then they don't. And then they get it, then they don't. And as we see here in Jeremiah 33, God tries to wake them up. See, on your note sheet, I have verse 1 put there just to remind us Jeremiah is confined to the courtyard. Can you imagine the PR issues that a king would have to have when a prophet is saying, hey guys, we're going to be invaded? You know, what do you do with this guy? Do you kill him? Do you put him in prison? Well, he can find him into the courtyard. And in Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 2, these words are spoken to people that didn't deserve it. These words are spoken to a people who had consistently walked away from God. Jeremiah 33, verse 2 reads like this. This is what the Lord says. He who made the earth, the Lord who formed it and established it, the Lord is his name. God is using his infinite name at this point in time. The infinite name of God, the I am, the one that doesn't have a tense, you know, like in English class, you know, I am here on the stage right now. The Hebrew word for I am doesn't have that. It's I was, I am, and I will be. It's an infinite name. And God is saying, hey, do you forget who I am? Yeah, this is bad, and yeah, it's your fault, but I am the I am. The other thing that he points out here is he says, I am the Lord who formed the earth and who established it. The Lord is his name. Do you forget who I am? I'm the author of time, God is saying to these people. I am the one who was the framework of life. I am the one who speaks life out of nothingness. I took a worthless clump of clay and gave it life. And so God is pursuing these people. Romans 5:8 actually kind of mirrors this. Romans 5:8 says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. While we were sinners, you know what it's like. Right after you've committed that sin, right after you've done that thing that you know you're not supposed to do, you're hiding and you don't want anybody to see you, and it's like God looked down through time and looked at Jesus and said, we need to take care of that. The God of the Bible is a God of love because he keeps pursuing us. He keeps seeing us where we are in need, and he keeps trying to bridge the gap. And so God is saying here to the people who are in over their head, who don't deserve it, he's saying, call. Now, this is more than just pray, okay? This is more than just, hey, God, I need a prayer right now, because this is an actual yell out to God. This is a, hey, God, I need you. The word call here is actually the same word in the Old Testament because it was written in Hebrew. It's the same word that is used for calling somebody, is calling a name to a child. There is a definite, purposeful, this is intentional, this isn't accidental. And I go back to that space where I was in the hospital bed and I said, God, I'm going to call out to you. I know who you are. And God, please, I need your help. Now, God is merciful. And I'm here to tell you that our God still fixes broken stuff because he fixes us in so many different areas. Because he is an infinite God. He has an infinite name. He has infinite power. And because of that, there's infinite possibilities. Check out Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 3, the verse that I'm really focusing on. Call to me, and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and unsearchable things that you do not yet know. It's like God's going, hey guys, you want to see something cool? I'm going to blow your mind. This is going to be so far beyond what you think is a possibility. I can't even explain it to you. Because sometimes when we are going through a trial, it's like you poke a hole in a piece of paper and you look through that. I don't know if you've done that, but as a kid, I used to play around with stuff like that. You lose your peripheral vision when you're in the middle of a crisis. When there are times of trials that are coming along, you forget all the other stuff that's around. And God's saying, I've got this whole thing. If you would just call to me, I'm going to do something that's beyond your expectations. And let me give you an example. I'm standing here today because 5 years ago, people were praying. Now, I was hoping I'd be alive in 5 years. And I even told you I was hoping maybe that I'd be in ministry. But the chance to speak to you guys, that's God. One summer alone, I got to speak to over 3,000 high schoolers and tell them our God is still the God who fixes broken stuff. And so, what is it in your lives that an infinite God with infinite power could do? Now, don't get those three things out of order. The three things of God fixes us spiritually, he fixes us emotionally, and he fixes us physically. Because a lot of the times, all we want is the quick fix, the physical. But I think the most important thing is that spiritual. That's what Jesus came to heal. And so if we are not in that place where we are right with God spiritually, then we are missing out on the life that Jesus has offered us. And so hopefully this week, as you're here at Parker Hill, you will start to see that there is a God who loves you, he's pursuing you, and if you call, God can do great things, even if you're in way over your head. Maybe you're here and you're thinking, there's stuff in your world that's beyond where you are, that is too broken. Maybe you look at something at work where God couldn't work in that area. Maybe you look at your school board, or maybe you look at something in your community and you say, man, that community is too far gone for God. What if we pray? I'm here to tell you that God cared enough about a tall, skinny white guy who already loved him, what could he do in our communities here in Northeast Pennsylvania? I tell you what, my prayer isn't that God just heals people from cancer. My prayer is that the church in Northeast Pennsylvania becomes so vibrant and so connected with Him, and that things start to happen that people from other parts of the United States don't go, oh, Northeast Pennsylvania, wow, that's a hard place to do ministry. I'm praying that God changes hearts, He moves in people's lives, that there is created a movement because people are passionately pursuing after Him, that people down south are sitting there going, you know, if you want to get to the place where God's doing some really good stuff, Northeast Pennsylvania is the place to go. Because my God is still fixing broken stuff. And there's nothing too far away for God. And so as I was thinking about that, I remembered an email that I had sent. All the emails that we had collected, we put together in a book. A friend of ours had encouraged us to do that because they said there was just so much that God was teaching us through that. So they're like, if you sell one book and it helps one person out, you know, that, otherwise it's a history book for your family. And so it reminded me of the fact that, you know, sometimes we feel like we're too far gone for God. But here's one thing that God taught me in March of 2007. I said, Kayrita and Taylor were very excited to get outside and play today. Both kids climbed and crawled and ran and fell. They got back up and did it again. They were kind of gross, and when it was all done, after getting all messy, Taylor had the guts to come over to me and lift both arms up and say, up. Did he know how gross he was? Didn't he realize I just saw him crash in the slimy mud? No. He didn't care, and neither did I. He knew that his Father would pick him up. This is the beauty of love and being loved, that there is no fear in rejection. I was wondering what God was doing with me all week as I stumbled around with my stress. He was watching me climb, crawl, run, and fall in the mud. He was just waiting for me to come over and have the guts to lift both of my grimy arms up and say, up. Jesus said, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You are never too messy for Jesus. Just a tall, skinny white guy trying to follow Jesus. Wayne. My prayer for you tonight is that's all you see and that's all you've heard. Wayne's just a tall, skinny white guy who's trying to pursue Jesus. Sometimes I do it well, and other times I'm just holding on to the foot of the cross. But hopefully, as we leave here, you remember that our God, He can still fix broken stuff. So what can He do if we call out to Him tonight?